Asterisk, an old homeless man with silver hair and eyes that seemed to see through history, handed President Ibrahim Traoré a torn, dusty book. And just days later, the fate of an entire nation began to shift. Asterisk, the heat of the afternoon bore down heavily on the cracked roads of Ouagadougou. Dust floated lazily in the air, caught in golden shafts of sunlight that pierced through gaps between the crumbling buildings. The capital was alive but strained. Its soul tugged between resilience and exhaustion. Markets buzzed. Children played barefoot in alleyways. And somewhere amidst the ordinary rhythms of the city, an extraordinary encounter was about to unfold. Asterisk, President Ibrahim Traoré had chosen to leave the confines of his armored convoy that day. His advisors had protested. His security team frowned in frustration, but Traoré was insistent. He didn't want staged smiles or rehearsed welcomes. He wanted to feel the heartbeat of his people, unfiltered and unscripted. Asterisk, disguised in plain clothes, a loosely draped scarf masking most of his face, he walked through the back streets with only a single aide trailing at a discreet distance. As he turned a narrow corner near a forgotten neighborhood behind the old textile district, a figure caught his attention. Asterisk, seated beside an overflowing trash bin was a man, his skin leathery and burnt from years under the sun, hair in disarray, fingernails thick with dirt. His clothes hung in tatters, barely shielding him from the harsh heat, but his eyes, though eyes were crystal sharp. They watched Ibrahim approach with an unsettling stillness, as if waiting. Their gazes locked. Asterisk for a moment, time seemed to slow. The man raised his hand not to beg, not to shield, but in a silent gesture of recognition. Ibrahim hesitated. This was not an uncommon sight in the city. Poverty wore 1,000 faces. But something about this man was different. Asterisk, you shouldn't be here, the man said, his voice raspy but steady. Not without knowing what came before you. Ibrahim blinked, stunned by the odd phrasing. Do I know you? He asked cautiously. Asterisk, the man gave a broken chuckle. Not yet. But I knew them, all those who wore that seat before you. And I warned them. 2. None listened. Asterisk, a pause. Ibrahim studied him more closely. His clothes were torn, yes, but there was a strange dignity in the way he sat, in the calmness of his speech. Like a man who had seen more than his appearance betrayed. Asterisk, come, the man continued, pointing to a broken bench nearby. Let me give you something. It's not money I want, it's memory. The aide, sensing danger, stepped forward, but Ibrahim raised his hand. Let him speak. Asterisk, from under the folds of an old blanket, the man pulled out a worn leather-bound book. It was covered in grime, the edges brittle with age. He held it out like an offering. Asterisk, this belonged to a man who once tried to save this land, he whispered. Long before names were erased, before truths were buried. Inside you will find pieces of a history they want you to forget. Read it, but not with your eyes, with your bones. Asterisk, Ibrahim took the book slowly. It was heavier than he expected. Ah! Strange chill crept up his spine. Asterisk, who are you? He asked. Asterisk, the man smiled faintly. A man who remembered too much and lost everything for it. Asterisk, without another word, the man turned away, curling into the shadows behind the dumpster, his body disappearing as if it had merged with the very dust of the earth. Asterisk, that night, in the quiet solitude of his private study, Ibrahim opened the book. At first it seemed like nothing: scribbles, old maps, some torn newspaper clippings. But as he turned the pages, patterns began to emerge. Names, codes, events he had read about only in heavily redacted intelligence reports. Diagrams of old French colonial routes. Locations of gold mines that had long been declared depleted. Letters written by unknown patriots, people who warned. against selling the land's soul for foreign currency. Asterisk, and then, deeper in the book, pages that felt almost prophetic. They described a time when a young warrior would rise from the ashes of a broken nation, that he would wear the mark of truth, but walk among shadows, that he would be betrayed not by enemies, but by those closest to him. Ibrahim felt his pulse quicken. The last pages were written in a different script, told barely legible. A passage stood out, asterisk, when the land cries out and the rivers turn to teal. Dust, the child of fire will meet the spirit of memory. If he listens, the chains will fall. If he forgets, the sky will burn. Asterisk, for the first time in years, Ibrahim felt truly shaken. The book was not just history. It was a warning. It had the tone of a confession, the weight of the Last Testament. Asterisk, he stayed up until dawn reading every word, cross-checking what he could, and realizing just how much of his nation's past had been swallowed by silence. Asterisk, over the following days, something in him shifted. He canceled meetings with foreign mining delegations. He ordered a secret audit of all national resource contracts. He reopened investigations into the deaths of 3 former revolutionary leaders whose files had been sealed decades ago. And most significantly, he began visiting rural provinces in secret, meeting with elders, listening to folk tales, oral histories matching them with the contents of the book. Asterisk, behind closed doors, his cabinet murmured of a change in him. Some whispered that the president had become paranoid. Others feared he had uncovered something dangerous. But none dared ask. Weeks passed. Then came the night he returned to the same corner near the textile district. Asterisk, the man was gone. Not a trace. Asterisk, Ibrahim inquired with locals, showing a sketch. Most shook their heads. Only one old woman remembered. Asterisk, that one, she said, squinting. He was here years ago. Said he used to work in the palace before they called him mad. Asterisk, do you know his name? Ibrahim asked. Asterisk, she nodded slowly. He called himself Kaber. He vanished. The year Sankara died. Ibrahim stood frozen. He returned to his study that night and opened the book again. This time, he noticed something he hadn't before etched faintly on the back cover. Property of J. Kaber. From that moment forward, the book never left his desk. It sat beside his speeches, his treaties, his notes, a silent advisor, a reminder, a talisman against forgetting. Asterisk, historians may one day debate the turning point in Ibrahim Traoré's presidency. They may cite policy shifts, bold reforms, defiant speeches. But they will never know what truly changed him. Asterisk. Not entirely, only he knew the truth. It all began with a homeless man and a dirty old book that rewrote the future. Asterisk, the cover of the book felt strange in his hands. It was soft and worn, like dried leaves in autumn, almost too fragile to be touched. Faded leather barely clung to its spine, and the title, if there ever had been one, was lost to time and dust. Asterisk, President Ibrahim Traoré turned it over carefully, unsure of whether to open it then and there or wait until the safety of silence. The homeless man's words still echoed in his mind. Asterisk, inside lies the truth you must know, if you truly wish to free this country. Asterisk, he didn't speak for several seconds, caught in a moment of silence that felt almost sacred. Asterisk, the book was more than just old, it was ancient, and not merely in age, but in spirit. Something about it felt like it had passed through generations of hands, each carrying a piece of some forbidden truth too dangerous for public record. Asterisk, where did you get this? Ibrahim asked, his voice quiet. Asterisk, the man didn't answer directly. His eyes, still sharp beneath the shadow of his unkempt hair, narrowed slightly. Asterisk, this book belonged to those who walked before you. Patriots, rebels, ghosts. They tried. Like you are trying, but they didn't see far enough. This book helped them understand. Too late. I hope you'll be faster. Asterisk. The president clutched the book tightly and gave the man a single nod. No more words were exchanged. No guard stepped in. The moment passed like a whisper caught in the wind. And before long, Ibrahim had returned to his residence, the book wrapped in his coat, as if it was something precious or dangerous, or both. Asterisk. That night, behind locked doors, he sat at his desk and carefully peeled the book open. The first few pages crumbled at the edges, as if they resented being disturbed. Asterisk. On the inside cover, there were initials faintly scrawled in ink, MTS. The handwriting was jagged, hurried, almost anxious. Asterisk. Beneath it, a short line in an older dialect of Mo. Asterisk. Do not look unless you are ready to carry it. Asterisk. The pages inside weren't organized like a traditional manuscript. Some were journal entries. Others looked like transcribed conversations. Many were incomplete. The ink faded or splattered. There were diagrams of old machinery, maps of regions now renamed or erased from modern cartography, and timelines that didn't match the official histories. Asterisk. But beneath the surface chaos, something coherent was taking shape. Asterisk. Ibrahim's hands trembled slightly as he flipped through the sections. One page detailed the original colonial contracts, copied word for word from agreements that were never meant to see the light of day. It exposed how lands Asterisk had been promised for 99 years in exchange for security that never arrived. It named corporations and government officials, some long dead, others very much alive. These pages alone, if made public, would shake the foundation of the entire political elite. Asterisk. Further in, a list of names, familiar ones: judges, ministers, generals, but not as public servants, as agents, as buyers, as sellers of sovereignty. For each name, a date, a location, a single word beside it: bought. Next to a few others: resisted. And beside those: eliminated. Asterisk. Ibrahim's breath grew shallow. But the most disturbing section was yet to come. Asterisk. It was in the middle of the book, written in a different hand, smoother, more deliberate. This section was titled simply, The Pattern. It spoke of cycles, how every generation a leader would rise, with hope in his eyes, with fire in his chest, and dreams too big for the cage around him. Asterisk. The pattern explained how these men would be watched from the moment they spoke, infiltrated by handlers posing as advisors, their hopes slowly redirected or quietly destroyed. If that failed, if they resisted too hard, there were always alternatives: scandal, shame, sudden illness, or accidents that weren't accidents at all. Asterisk. There were illustrations too. Symbols he did not recognize. One resembling a spider within a triangle, another showing a snake coiled around a tower. In a footnote below them, a line in red ink: asterisk. They are still here, hiding in plain sight. Asterisk. Ibrahim paused. He thought of Thomas Sankara, of Norbert Zongo, of others whose ideals had flickered briefly before being snuffed out. Asterisk. The book didn't just speak of history, it spoke of continuity. The enemy wasn't merely the past, it was now. It was always. Asterisk. And then came the final section, the broken circle. Asterisk. These pages were filled with personal letters, some unsigned, some likely never delivered. They were addressed to future leaders. One letter read, asterisk. Greater than you must understand that freedom is not gifted. It is stolen over and over from the jaws of fear. Do not negotiate with chains. Cut them. Another. Greater than, they will offer you comfort. And when you decline, they will offer you pain. And when you withstand that, they will offer you blood. Do not drink it. Ibrahim closed the book and leaned back, staring at the ceiling in silence. This was not simply an old book. It was a record of betrayal, resistance, death, and memory. And more than that, it was a challenge, a whispered dare from ghosts, a test left for the next man who believed he could bend the arc of destiny toward justice. Asterisk, by the time the sun began to rise, his eyes were bloodshot and his mind had shifted in ways he couldn't yet describe. He had come into the night with power. But now he felt he had something more dangerous, knowledge. Not the kind that informed policy, but the kind that disturbed sleep. Asterisk, and he knew something else, something undeniable. The man who gave him the book was no ordinary homeless man. He was a sentinel, a keeper, a guardian of buried truths waiting to be unearthed. There would be no turning back. From that day forward, the book remained locked in a drawer beside Ibrahim's desk, not because he feared someone stealing it, but because he knew once someone else read it, they too would never be the same. Asterisk, the real revolution, he understood now, had never ended. It had only been waiting for someone who could read between the lines. Asterisk, the silence of the presidential residence was absolute. The corridors, usually guarded and buzzing with distant footsteps, now seemed to hold their breath, as if aware of the secret being unraveled within its walls. Asterisk, in his private study, Ibrahim Traoré sat hunched over the ancient book, the flickering glow of a single lamp casting long shadows behind him. He had waited until the deepest hour of night to open it again, when the palace was asleep and the country unaware. Asterisk, something in him knew this reading was not merely out of curiosity. It was an initiation, a second threshold. The first had revealed betrayal. This one, he sensed, would reveal purpose. Asterisk, as he turned to the next segment of the crumbling pages, the writing style shifted. It was older, written in pre-colonial script, blended with symbols that only trained eyes might recognize. Markings common in spiritual scrolls, tribal war records, and ancient merchant treaties. The ink had faded, but the intent behind the words remained piercing. Asterisk, the first map appeared midway through a brittle page, drawn in charcoal strokes. It showed a region of the Sahel not found in any modern cartography. A small mountain range, long believed to be myth, was marked with an X and circled in crimson dye. Around it, a scrolled line in an ancient Mande dialect read, asterisk, "The river runs beneath the stone, and beneath the river lies what they buried to forget." Asterisk, he paused. Treasure? A burial site? Or something more abstract? Wisdom, knowledge. A lost weapon. Asterisk. A second section was even stranger, a series of royal decrees, written by tribal leaders from before the arrival of Europeans. Each decree was sealed with an imprint resembling a wolf's paw, not a lion, not a serpent. A wolf. Asterisk, and alongside these seals were repeated references to something called the Order of the First Flamir, a pre-colonial brotherhood believed to have guarded sacred relics and protected chosen leaders from curses and betrayal. Asterisk, one decree. Read. Asterisk, greater than to the one who rises after the long sleep, with dusk in his eyes and the burden of the pack upon his shoulder, she shall awaken the blood of kings, walk the forbidden trails, and speak the words that unsettle thrones. Asterisk, it was poetic, prophetic even, and it unsettled Ibrahim in ways he couldn't describe. Asterisk, he read on. And the strangest section followed a prophecy. It was written in 3 languages as if meant for multiple.